Hey, friends, welcome into another episode of the Overcoming Adversity podcast. I'm your host, Michael Allison. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Today's guest is Bradlee Skinner. He's an educational thought leader, entertainer, former administrator, author, playwright, and a prospective speaker. So if you're out there listening, he could be your next potential speaker. Hey, Bradlee, welcome into the show, brother.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Man, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, man. From reading your story and seeing some of the things that you've been through in your life, man, you are a true testament of overcoming adversity. So it's an honor to have you here to come and share your story, where I know that you can make an impact to our listeners, man. So thank you, brother.
My pleasure. It's an honor.
Absolutely, man. Let's dive into it, man. You've accomplished a good bit in your life, and you've been through some things, man. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspires you to even pursue the career into education and becoming even an educational thought leader? I know where you could take this when it comes to kids and other reasons, man. But can you tell us your own personal story, brother?
So for me, it really started out with theater. Acting is when I got into high school. I was very, very introverted, very nervous, shy. Kind of wanted to just stay away from everybody and everything. And I had a teacher that was a theater director that said, hey, you should really come and try my class. And from there, then it was, you should really audition for one of our plays. And I did it simply because my older brother was in theater. So I said, yeah, you know what, you've been really nice to him. So sure, I'll give it a shot. And started to learn that, hey, I was actually kind of good at this. And it allowed me to share my voice in a way that I didn't know that I could. And where normally I was so shy and reserved, when I was on stage, I could be somebody else. I could perform as someone else. I didn't have to use my own words. I was using someone's word on a script. And that just gave me a lot of confidence that I didn't really have in myself, but that character could. And so I could just kind of play that part. And that teacher just really kept fostering that and really showed me that there was more to life. And those skills from theater, whether you never did theater again after high school, those skills would still benefit you. Public speaking, communicating, teamwork, all those things I could still use in any career path that I chose. But I ended up still just picking theater and education as a career that I wanted to be involved in. When I saw how much joy that it brought me, and I knew I could help others hopefully find that same love and joy for the stage as well.
Man, I love that, man. As you're telling me that, I was seeing myself in regards to starting this podcast, writing my book, and those different things that I thought was challenging being an introvert, if believe it or not, and how I was able to express myself on these different platforms. What I want to follow up on that question, though, is how impactful was it to have someone at such a young age, when I think about kids, to empower you and inspire you to go on and do some things like that at such a young age?
I think it's essential. I think in our world today, especially in education, we need more people that, not even if they're not saying, hey, I'm pushing you to do math because I'm a math teacher, I'm pushing you to do theater because I'm a theater director, or to do English because I'm an English teacher. Whatever it might be, it doesn't really matter as long as they believe in you and are showing that they're saying, hey, we know you can accomplish something, and I'm here to help support that. And having that at a young age, I think is vital, to have older individuals that respect what you're trying to do, believe in what you're doing, and are going to help you achieve it.
Can you talk a little bit about what was it like with people surrounding you, with your immediate family? How did that impact you? Mom, dad, siblings, knowing that their son is going to make a decision to do something like that. What was that support structure like for you?
I think at first there was always some questioning, and a lot of times there is. But I think the more that people see that you're passionate about something, that success can be there. I'd much rather see any of my students. I hope that they find something they're passionate in that they want to pursue as a career. I'd much rather see that than someone just saying, hey, I'm going to go chase the money, or I'm going to go after this career because I may not like it, but there's money there and my parents want me to do it. I just want to see them do something that they're passionate about, and then that success will come. Because if they love what they're doing and they enjoy it, they're going to be better at it. They're going to put more effort and energy into it, and they're simply going to be better. And hopefully in the long run, they're also happier with what they're doing, rather than ever feeling regretful for the choices that they made.
I love
And so
go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, with my family, I think at first when I said, hey, I'm going to go into education, it was, are you sure? Uh, and but then when they saw how passionate I was about it and that I loved it and it brought me a lot of joy as well as success, then it was really easy, and they've been incredibly loving, caring, and supporting ever since.
Can you share a like pivotal moment in your journey from administrator to entertainer and to our author while you was on this journey, man?
Oh, absolutely. And that came from an administrator that told me that these are some things that I should do.
Hmm.
Because again, when I'm on stage performing, whether it was acting, entertaining, even in any form that I've done as a performer, it was usually me as somebody else. If I'm dancing, it's because I had a choreographer that gave me the steps. If I'm acting, I had someone else's words. But I had an administrator. He was my principal. His name's Darren Peppard. And Darren said to me, he's like, you have a story to share and you need to tell it. And it's more important that you tell it rather than letting other people tell your story. And I was like, why would anybody care what I have to say or what I have to offer? I'm just me. And he said, yeah, you are. And everybody is themselves. And more people need to share authentically who they are. And he invited me to present at a conference one summer. And when I did, the reception that I got from that conference was so great. I was like, wow, I guess maybe there is something more here. And just having him believe in me when I didn't really believe in myself made all the difference.
Wow. So how do you incorporate humor into your creativity, man?
I, I do it every day in my classroom. I think students learn better if they're having fun. So being
Mm.
engaging and making lessons that are fun and having just a day where you can laugh and learn at the same time, I just think it works so much better. And so I try to do that anytime that I'm speaking or that I'm traveling and sharing my story. There's definitely some pain. There's some heartfelt moments, and there's a lot of hurt that exists there. But you can't be sad and in pain all the time. Sometimes you just have to laugh. And so being able to find those moments of joy and even levity that I can look back and laugh at a lot of the things that have happened, and still just recognize that it's not always a case where things happened to you. In some instances, they happened for you, and it's just simply made life, even though it was challenging, it eventually made things better.
If you could expound on that, man, can you share with us like what does a positive school culture look like, and what does that mean to you? And since you've been doing it with so much experience, what has that impact been on any of your students that you could share with our audience, man?
For me, having a positive school culture and climate makes a world of difference. And I say that specifically because of the path and the journey that I took, is that I didn't realize just how important that is, how important the relationships that you can foster from an administrator to an educator, from educator to students, to everybody that's involved, being in a place where teachers show up every day because they love to be there, where students want to come to your class because they enjoy learning, where your administrators are part of your team and they're there for you. They support and they uplift and inspire you, and they're not part of some conspiracy to catch you doing things that are wrong. And so I came from an experience where earlier in my teaching career, I just never felt like I found that place. I never had that love and that support system. And I think I was just kind of going through the motions. And I
Mhm.
think I knew my content and I knew how to teach, but everything else just felt out of line. My life was really struggling. My health started to suffer. My mental health started to suffer physically. I was having a lot of issues. And it eventually led to a point where if I couldn't see value in what I was doing for a career, I started to lose a sense of value in being a person. And slowly, I kept spiraling into a deeper and a darker place until it reached a point where, unless I got professional help, I didn't see a way out. I ended up losing my job. We lost our home. and I almost lost a lot more.
Wow.
I ended up walking away from teaching. I wanted nothing to do with education again. I was so jaded, and I hated the education system in the way that I felt that it had damaged me. But that's because I didn't see the good and all the positive things that could exist when done right.
Mhm.
And eventually, I had former students that kept reaching out to me, not only to see if I was doing okay, making sure that I was getting help, but they also were telling me how much they learned from my classes and how much they valued the lessons that I had taught, and that I was still needed in a classroom and I should really consider going back. And so what I said was, if I go back, I'm not just going to go back to any job. I need to find the right one, the right place. And I ended up finding, again, I was with Darren Peppard, that he offered me a position to come and teach at his school, where his school, the main focus was a positive culture and climate, was relationships first. And if you focus on relationships, everything else will just fall into place. The opposite of if you focus on test scores, then you can end up damaging a lot of relationships.
Mhm.
And he said, no, we're going to do it differently. We want to focus on relationships, build those positive interactions, and then the test scores will simply fall into place and we'll be better for it. And teaching at that school reignited that love that I had for passion, and a passion for teaching. It reminded me of all the reasons why I started in education in the first place. And it showed me all the goodness that can exist when it's done right. And after that, it was, there was no turning back. I love what I'm doing. I come to school every single day having fun. I look forward to it rather than dreading it. Um, there's a smile on my face every single class hour, rather than when I used to take a break and go hide in a closet and cry because I was so just downtrodden. It's amazing. And I hope that my students, that, and I believe they do, that they feel that difference, that they come to class every day and they know it's a little bit different because that focus is different. And that's made that world of difference in just putting people first over policies or procedures, and everything else just kind of falls into place when we focus on making sure that everyone is physically, mentally, and emotionally stable before we worry about what we're trying to teach on a classroom chalkboard.
Well, I love that connection and the pure authenticity in that. For someone that just share what you just shared, how did you, or what advice I'm going to ask you based off what you've been through? How did you navigate through some challenges and setbacks, right? And for listeners that are listening, what advice could you offer them that could be in similar situations that are facing some challenges and setbacks? What advice could you offer them to help them get through some of the situations that they may be facing?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I believe, and I consider myself a very spiritual individual. And my faith and belief in God, obviously, first and foremost, is one of those things that helped me get through those difficult times. Second is my wife. I know I wouldn't have survived the suffering that I was going through in silence, and I wouldn't have made it through without the blessing in my life that she is. My wife, Melissa, is just the single most greatest person that I've been blessed with, and having her love and support made all the difference. I didn't ever really realize at the time just how, I knew things were bad, but I didn't realize how bad they were. And there were some days where, without her really, physically and emotionally lifting me up,
Mhm.
um, I wouldn't have. And so I would say to anybody else that if you're facing those difficulties, if you're struggling with any challenges, I still, even though we're in 2024, there's still a lot of stigma about talking to mental health professionals, talking to individuals that can, whether it's a support group, whether it's an individual doctor, anybody, that just talk to someone. Be open, be honest, be genuine, and just talk to someone. Give them that opportunity to hear you, so that way you know that you're being heard, that you're being seen, and that you're being loved. And man, just being able to, on some days where I just didn't know how to navigate the day, having somebody I could talk to just to know that they were there, that somebody there was listening, and they could help me see the world in a way that I couldn't see because I was so narrow focused at that time, where I was just trying to survive day to day. So having somebody else there that had access to that life or that vision, that world of that professional help that could help me through it in a way that I didn't know I needed. I just know I needed something more than what I currently had. So please just talk to somebody. Be open and be willing to be vulnerable. As difficult and as challenging as it may be, it can really make all the difference.
Wow. So for 10 years, when I got out of the military, I never even sought mental health because of the stigmas that was tied around it. And it took a while for me to even have that breakthrough. And once I had that breakthrough, then that's when I started going on my own self-discovery journey of getting all of the self-help, personal development, those different things to help shape things around for me. I personally was on the brinks of suicide. You know, I want to ask you this though, man. When you were in that space, right, and you're having that support from your family, I know it had to been tough, right? Can you share with our audience, right, what are some tips or some skills that someone could implement into their lives now when it comes to being vulnerable and transparent in regards to seeking that breakthrough that you had?
I think for me, as I said, talking about it is important, but not everybody's going to be immediately ready to talk to somebody.
Mhm.
Sometimes we're dealing with a lot of denial, and a lot of that denial might be, I don't need to talk to anybody, or
Mhm.
I don't have anything wrong with me. There's a lot of pride. And I was very prideful to that point where I was like, no, I don't need to talk to anyone. I can get through this myself, where clearly I couldn't. I needed something more. But that pride was there. And the way that I viewed it was, if I admit that I need help, I'm admitting that I'm broken. And that's how I viewed it. Rather than viewing like, hey, it doesn't mean that everything may not be perfectly aligned physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I may not have everything aligned properly, but it doesn't mean that it's damaged. It doesn't mean it's broken. It doesn't mean it can't be fixed. But I viewed it that way. And so I avoided admitting it because I was admitting defeat. And so that was that first step I had to get past, was you're not broken. You're not damaged. It's just some things may not be completely aligned in your life yet. So get that help to help align those different elements of your life. I think there's a lot of power in writing. If people aren't to a point where they're saying, hey, I'm going to talk to someone yet, write your feelings down, write what your struggles are, write down whatever it is that you might feel that you need, and then go back and reread it. Take a look as you've had maybe 24 hours to say, all right, I wrote that down. It's out of my system. Now I'm going to go back and look at it. And you're almost giving yourself some self-therapy. You can look and be like, this is how I was feeling in that moment, but how do I feel right now 24 hours later? Am I still feeling the same? 36 hours, 48 hours, whatever it might be, that you can start going, okay, if I'm 2-3 days apart and I'm still feeling this way, maybe I really do need to go talk to somebody, because I'm still feeling these things and I know that's not what I should be feeling, and maybe I do need to go. And so sometimes that first step, maybe writing down those thoughts, revisiting it, and seeing how you're progressing, or are things changing? And if they're not changing, move to that next step. And I think if you're going to talk with somebody, maybe if you're not saying I'm going to go jump and talk to a counselor, a therapist, a psychiatrist, whatever, maybe just start with sharing your feelings with a loved one, with a family member, somebody that you're comfortable talking to. They're not going to be able to help you in the same way, but you're at least practicing being open and being honest. And that might be just as hard. Sometimes talking to a stranger is easier. And I found that to be a lot of case where there were some things that I just couldn't open up and I couldn't share. I felt still so reserved that I couldn't admit these things even to my wife. I was like, maybe I can share it to somebody else, which then made it easier to be open and honest in how I was feeling with my wife. And so she could understand those struggles. And so then she had the tools to be able to help me through it. And so I think those are definitely some steps that you can take. But most importantly is finding out and figuring out what works for you. If a support group is better and you feel more comfortable there, go there. If it is an individual doctor or a clinician, then talk to that person. But you've got to find what works for you, and you won't ever find what works if you don't take that first step.
Right. When it comes to being an educational thought leader like yourself, what were some of the most like essential skills that you developed or even learned about yourself being out here as a leader now, and what you're empowering into the people that you're impacting and the people that you're inspiring and the people that you're empowering now, man?
Make mistakes. That, I think, is the most important thing. And I say that now because my viewpoint has shifted. When I was previous in my career and growing up, a lot of times I wouldn't try things because I was so afraid of failing. And then when I got into my teaching career, a lot of that still lingered, where I wasn't willing to try new things, or I wasn't willing to step out and try a new way of teaching or directing or doing something for fear of failure. Because if I was told, hey, you did that poorly, then that was me. Okay, well, if I did it poorly, that means I'm poor at my job. And if I'm bad at my job, then what am I doing here? And that's how I felt. I didn't see that failing was an essential step towards success. I saw it as the opposite, that if you fail, you're bad. You're worth less than you currently are in that moment. And you're just going to keep getting worse because you're going to keep failing. And man, that was so terrible. One, it's wrong. But second, it was incredibly damaging to my own mental health because I just viewed it in that lens that every time that I messed up something, I was now valued less.
Mm-hmm.
Versus now where I see it, man, I try to fail at something every day. Because if I fail at it, it means I'm trying. And if I'm trying, I can eventually get better. So I love failing at stuff. I relish it. It takes a while to get over that and to learn that, no, it's okay to fail. And I try to teach that to my students constantly, that just because you might fail at something doesn't make you a failure. You still matter. You still have value. So take what you have, learn from it, and let's make it better. But we got to get past that mental aspect of that, oh, failing is just awful. But it's not, because it's teaching us how to be better, how to not do certain things. I mean, you look at a little kid that plays a video game for the first time, they're terrible at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then how quickly they start learning, oh, well, I can't jump here, or I can't hit this, or I can't run over there. And okay, well, then if I can't do that, what can I do? And it's just instant. Learning happens so quickly. And if we could look at life that same way, all right, I just learned how not to do it, so I'm going to try something else. Oh, I learned how to get better. I'm going to do this now. And I think just opening our eyes to the way that the world can be, if we individually do it and can help share that to others, that failing is simply a step towards success. Let's keep building off of it rather than looking at it as such a terrible, awful thing.
You said something that I think is a beautiful thing, man. But when it comes to mental health and being a leader in the space that you are, do you find or feel that there is a spiritual connection that puts you where you're at, where you're supposed to be when it comes to being around kids and helping them and supporting them, being in that space, knowing all of the things that you've been through before, where you could identify things, you could see things, and you could start helping people, man?
I truly believe so. It's hard for me not to get emotional even just thinking about that, but I believe very, very heavily that God's hand is in all things. And if we allow that opportunity to look at the world the way that he does, to love people the way that God does, to just say, hey, I'm going to be here as an instrument in his hands to be able to help shape, hopefully, the future, the world to be a better place, then that's what I want to do. So no matter where that is, whether that's in a classroom, if it is on a stage speaking, if it is wherever I may be, I want to try to uplift, to inspire, to just make a difference, or even just to let one person, even if it's one kid in my classroom or one person audience, to know that you matter, that you are loved, that even if I don't know you, I still respect you, I support you, and I hope that you succeed in whatever it is that you want to do. I want at least one person to be able to walk away that know that they have a champion in me, that even if we just met, I hope the best for them. I want them to succeed. I want them to be happy in life, and I want them to just be the best version of themselves that they can be. And that's just, man, that's what I hope for. It doesn't matter what career path that my students choose. I just want them to be happy in life. I want them to be successful. I want them to be good community members that can help shape the world to make it a better place. And there's so much joy in that.
Wow. Man, I'm inspired by you as I see and hear like school shootings or these different things that take place within the school systems and things like that. And to know that I'm speaking to somebody that champions empowering the students, encouraging the students, is there for the safety of the students and allowing them to think in a such a creative way where it's so positive. Man, I'm encouraged by hearing your story, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try. I know I don't get it every day. Every day I don't get it right, but I keep trying. I show up every day, and I hope my students do the same. Just keep showing up each day and try to be a little bit better than you were the day before.
So for Bradlee, right? I know that sometimes Bradlee needs to take care of Bradlee. How does
Yes.
Bradlee how does Bradlee prioritize and take care of himself, his family, so you could go back and pour into other people?
That was a challenge, because I felt that I had been doing things, or I realized that I'd been doing things wrong, or I've been putting things in the wrong order. Um, I really believe prioritizing your life is paramount to success. And this is something that I do a lot of lessons and speaking on. And for me, I have a very strict priority list that I try to adhere to daily. And number one on that list is my relationship with God. That has to be first, because if that's out of whack, then nothing else is going to matter if I don't have that as number one in my life. Second is my relationship with my wife. That has to be second for my success, for the relationship, the life that we're trying to build. That has to be that second priority. Our children come third. I have three daughters, three beautiful, wonderful daughters who I love dearly. Our youngest just graduated high school this week, so shout out Hannah, love you. And so they're that next thing on that list. And then comes my work responsibilities, things I do for the community, my job, other things have to fall underneath those. And the reason I said that is because when I was struggling with my teaching, I kept thinking, well, if I fail and I mess up, I'm worth less. So therefore, I have to work harder to get better. And as I started doing that, I moved work up to that top tier, and everything else got shifted down.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, I was spending more time at work, which meant less time with my kids. More time at work ended up with less time connecting with my wife. Our relationship suffered because of it. Because I was focusing so much on work, I then didn't have the relationship with the Lord that I believed I needed, and therefore spiritually I suffered. Everything got out of whack because I messed up my priorities. And in doing so, it ended up causing all those problems that led me in leaving education and suffering for years and trying to figure out what I did wrong. So now I just put those priorities and I keep them in order, and I make sure that they don't get moved. And if something comes up that looks like it's going to move one of those priorities, I just say, I'm sorry. It took me a long time to learn how to say no. That no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that because it's not a priority for me right now. And whether that's, maybe it's an extra assignment with work, or maybe it's a speaking event that's going to take me out of state and would take me away from an event that I was already promised my kids that I was going to do. And sometimes it's tough because that's what I want to be doing. I want to be furthering my career, but sometimes I have to say, I'm sorry, I already have a previous engagement that I need to be at with my kids, and I have to keep that. I'd be happy to reschedule, and we'll find another time that works, but I have to keep those priorities for my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. I have to keep those in order, and it's taken me 48 years to figure that out. but I'm not going to let those get out of order again because I've seen what happens when they do.
Absolutely, man. I love that, man. So we talked earlier, and you have something special coming out here the next couple weeks, couple months, if I'm not mistaken. Can you tell us about your writing project, your authoring project, your upcoming book, man?
It is. It's something I've been working on for a few years, and I really need to finally get it out there into the hands of people. I've been working on a book called Yelling at Flowers, and it's
Hmm.
being published by Code Breakers, and they're a publishing company out of Canada. Great to work with. They've been wonderful in this process. And we're really looking at it a lens through teacher retention. Right now, we have had 5 consecutive years where it's the only time in history with 5 consecutive years where teachers have left either early retirement, resigning, or just not even entering the field of education consistently in a row. And that's just causing more and more students to not have that consistency in the classrooms, to have those teachers that you can champion them in what they're doing. And so right now, teachers are struggling, and school districts across the country are struggling in maintaining good quality educators. And so I've been working on this book that really addresses if we can do things right in schools and in the classrooms, we're going to have more students interested in education. So going into educational programs in college, we will have more teachers staying in the classroom. Right now, we're right around 50% of new teachers are leaving and quitting teaching within the first 5 years. And so we're just losing so many good educators that could make such a difference in these students' lives, but they don't have that chance because they don't have a reason to stay.
Hmm.
And if we can just do things a little bit better. And so that's what my book is focusing on, is how in schools we can help support teachers, how we can how we can retain good educators, and just share that love and do things right so they don't feel that they have to leave to find something else.
Absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to the release, man.
Me too.
So before we get ready to wrap up and get out of here, aside from the book, what are some future things that you have coming up that our audience should know about?
Well, honestly, one of the funnest things that I do as a speaker, I love going into schools. I love talking to teachers, but also to students, of course. So I do have a special offer that I do every year, and it's only available for the first 5 schools that end up booking with me. Is if you end up booking for me to come and speak at your school, I will stay that night and I will DJ a dance for free for your students. So I also perform as a DJ. I do travel the country and I perform under the stage name of DJ Phony Stark, due to my resemblance of Tony Stark. So yeah, that's one of the things that I do, and students use it as often as a fundraiser for student programs, for groups like FFA or National Honor Society, or even their student council. So it's a great fundraiser for them, and I have a lot of fun doing it. I'm already going to be there, so hey, look, let's just stay and have a party that night and have some fun. So definitely, please, if you're interested in that, I'd love to come to your school and come help you out.
Absolutely, man. I love it, man. Before we wrap up and get out of here, can you share with our audience from your life experiences and some of the things that you've been through? What are some key takeaways that they could take from your life, from your story, that they could impart into their lives, man?
Surround yourself with good people. That's been one of the best blessings in my life, is that if you're surrounded with good people who are determined to see you succeed rather than having people around you that are hoping to see you fail, that made a world of difference. So when I was in the depths of despair, it was a lot of those former students that came back and said, hey, I'm here for you. I had
Mm.
one student that said, hey, I don't know what's going on in your life, but come and work for me. That was a really simple choice right there. I could either be humiliated with the fact that it took a student to reach out and say, hey, come, I can give you a job, or I could be humbled that he cared about me enough to call and to
Mm.
say, hey, come and work for me until you get back on your feet. I also had another student that called and said, hey, our grandma passed away, which I was terribly sorry for their loss. She said, but we're not going to sell their house yet until we figure out what to do with it. So why don't you come and move in so you have a place to live?
Wow.
the fact that I had students that loved me and cared about me enough to do that,
That says a lot about you, man.
yeah, showed that I was doing something right, and that I was surrounded by good people. So surround yourself with good people that care about you and are determined to see you succeed, and you will.
Absolutely, man. Rick, where can people find you, book you, call you, speak to you? Put all that out there, man.
All social media platforms. Bradlee, that's Bradlee with 2 E's. Bradlee W. Skinner. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. But just search for Bradlee W. Skinner and you can find me. BradleeWSkinner.com, but I think our website's currently down, so I've got to get that fixed, which is great because it's a former student that's actually my web designer, and she's taking care of me, so that's good. And or just simply at you can always email me Bradlee.Skinner at any of the emails. You'll find me. I'm somewhere.
Well, man, it's been a pleasure and an honor to hear your story, to come on and share with our audience, man. Thank you so much, Bradlee.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely, man. Until next time, guys, God bless.
Ain't it all? Couple dollars in my pocket, no income and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier. Thank God for clarity.